Yeah, we can just start off with an introduction. So Valentin Lopez has served as chair of the Amah Mutsun Tribal Band since 2003 and the president of the Amah Mutsun Land Trust since its inception. Valentin is a Native American advisor to the University of California Office of the President on issues related to repatriation. I tried to do this word a few times and I couldn't do it. Yeah, so Valentin is actively involved in the efforts to restore tribal indigenous knowledge and ensure our history is told accurately. I will pass this now to Chairman Lopez.
Hello, and thank you very much. Thank you. Well, as I said, my name is Valentin Lopez. Our tribe is comprised of the descendants, the indigenous descendants that were taken to Mission San Juan Bautista and Mission Santa Cruz. And a lot of people, what they know about Indians is that their history started with the mission period. And nothing could be further than the truth. Let's start with that video, and then we'll go from there. Let's do that. Is that all right?
Hole, lo, hole, lo, hole, lo, hole, lo, hole, lo.
Our tribe hasn't been on Juristac for well over 200 years, but Juristac is our most sacred mountains that our people lived at for thousands and thousands of years and hundreds of generations. It's a place of absolute beauty. My name is Valentin Lopez, and I'm the chairman of the Amah Mutsun Tribal Band. The traditional lands of our tribe are of the greater Monterey Bay and the Santa Clara and San Benito counties. Juristac is the most sacred lands within our territory. Today, it's comprised of 6,500 acres on the southern part of Gilroy. There was a proposal by the landowner to obtain a sand and gravel mining permit, a surface mining permit on this property. It's going to turn our most sacred mountain into just a big pit in the ground is what it's going to do. We would never be able to restore that. Juristac translates to the place of the big head. Big heads were our most important and most sacred ceremonies. We had ceremonies for renewal, ceremonies for wellness, ceremonies to keep balance with the 4 seasons, ceremonies for healing. Our spiritual leader, who was Kuk Sui, lived at Juristac. We had 4 village sites at Juristac. It's important that that village site be restored and managed and maintained by the Amah Mutsun. Also the rivers and the landscapes and the medicine plants, the basketry plants, the food plants, and the plants for crafting and etc. Must be restored and managed by the Amah Mutsun. There's so many unrecognized tribes and landless tribes in California today because our treaties were sabotaged by the state of California. The state of California had their own solution to the Indian problem. And that was extermination. That happened here in California. They were removed from Juristac and taken to the missions, and they never returned. The destruction and domination of California Indians has never ended. It continues to this day. But throughout, from that time to the current, it's always been our goal to protect and preserve that, and to return to Juristac, and to so that we can restore our ceremonies, that we can restore our spirituality and our culture and our, and restore the environment there and make that, and make it holy and sacred once again, and a place for our people to go. The only way to stop this mining project is by public pressure. So what we're asking people to do is become aware of the need to protect and preserve Native American spirituality and culture. And the best place within our territory is at Juristac, and help us stop this mining operation.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for showing that video. I'm going to talk just a little bit of background about our tribe, and then we'll go into the advocacy challenges and environmental versus indigenous considerations for environmental protections. As I said, our people have lived here for thousands and thousands of years. Our history tells us that we've been here since millennia. If you look at the textbooks, though, the textbooks will take our history here on these lands as being, 15, 20,000 years. But even that period, if you look at that in terms of generations, that means our people have been here for 1,000, 1,200, 1,000 and 1,200 generations or more. And our people were not just simple hunters and gatherers. That's so darn insulting whenever we're referred to as hunters and gatherers. Our people were very sophisticated and accomplished land managers. That central coast of California, where if you're in the Santa Cruz area today, that right there would be your home territories there. The central coast of California, that was a coastal prairie. It was wide open. We didn't have all the trees and the shrubs and that encroachment that you see now. That was wide open all the way to the foothills. And that's because those lands were intentionally managed to be a grassland prairie. And that grassland prairie is recognized as one of the most biodiverse landscapes in North America. One more interesting thing about the central coast of California, that area was the heaviest populated of indigenous people north of Mexico City. It was the most populated. Can you imagine that? And yet today, when you look for traces of Native Americans, where are they? Well, where they are is most of our ancestors were killed through 3 periods of brutal colonization that included genocide, that included where they wanted to destroy and dominate our spirituality, our culture, our environments, our indigenous knowledge, and our humanity. That's what happened to it. That was followed by the Mexican period, where again, we had genocide occurring there, and slavery, and rape, and just brutality against the natives. And then during the early California American period, the governor said in his very first State of the Union that there will be a war against the extermination of the California Indians. That was to be expected. Then they were paying bounty money, 25 cents to $5 bounty for every dead Indian here in California. And that bounty was state sanctioned. And they were paying militia. Oh, by the way, in Santa Cruz, in 1873, a newspaper article came out in the Santa Cruz Sentinel again, 1873, that said that the county will no longer pay bounties for the scalp of the Indians. So the paying of bounties for Indians happened right in Santa Cruz. And then they paid militias to go out and find, to find Indians and to kill them. There's Commander Fremont, who the town of Fremont is named after, there in San Jose. He is responsible for the largest one-day massacre of Indians in the United States. He killed over 1,000 Indians in one day. Him and his militia killed over 1,000 Indians near the city of near Clear Lake, near the Sacramento River. Killed over 1,000 Indians in one day, but yet we honor that history. He's recognized as a great pioneer, as an important historical figure of California that brought honor, respect, and glory to California Indian. They tried to wipe us out, and that continues to this day. Today, that video you just saw, that's an effort to continue the destruction and domination of our culture and our spirituality by destroying the most sacred mountain of the Amah Mutsun. This is where our ceremonies were held. The destruction and domination and genocide against the Mutsun people, against California Indians, has never ended. We're going to talk a bit now about environmental activism versus indigenous land protection. And we see this playing out right at Juristac, right in your backyard. If you're in Santa Cruz, that's just 20 miles down. Well, I'm guessing 20, 25 miles down the road from you are. Environmentalists, they view the environmental issues as separate from social issues, such as poverty or racism. But removing us from lands, removing us from our livelihoods, removing us from our foods, our medicines, our basketry, our wildlife, our sources of food. That's what the domination of the environment has meant to our people by the colonizers. We were removed from that. If we speak up, for a long time, our tribe had to identify ourselves as Mexican. That's how we survived the bounties, because we went to the missions. Our people spoke Spanish, and our Indian names were taken away from us, and we were given names like Hernandez, Rodriguez, Sanchez. So we were able to disguise our Indian identity and say we were Mexicans, and that's how we survived the bounty hunters and that militias. So, and that right there is that the colonizers' way of doing things, and now we're trying to recover from that. But they just look at the pure science issues. How do we restore this bird? How do we restore this wolf? How do we restore this mountain lion? They don't see it holistically. They don't see them as relatives. They don't see them as sacred as indigenous people do. And a lot of the times the environmental activists, they focus on public policy or land preservation goals. They see success as being measured against or achieving as achieving their goals, and it's always done with numbers and as numbers, and that number a lot of times includes how much fundraising money did they raise, and what percent of their goals did they accomplish. It doesn't look at the big overall picture. What impact did that have on wildlife? on the rivers, on the air, on the biodiversity, on the plants, etc. They also refer to conservation act. They tend to review from a scientific or a quantitative standpoint. They think that science is going to fix the problem. If there's a problem, just give it to them and they'll take care of it. And they'll dice it into little pieces and they'll try to handle one little piece of that problem and then they'll call that a success. What about the big picture here? The environment is often considered in the abstract and generally is seen as separate from daily life. An example to the one I just got, they try to break it up into little groups. You know, a group could focus on trying to protect birds or even a species of bird. And that's what they do all their fundraising on, protecting that bird. They do their fundraising on, and that's what they're measured against. How well do they do against that, you know, against that species of bird? But they don't look and see what impact protecting that bird have, what impact did that have on the insects? How do you protect the birds taking care of the landscapes? How do you take care of those birds so that they can make sure that they have if they're predator birds, for example, what are their food sources? It could be squirrels or mice or something like that. So you got to take care of those populations as well to ensure there's adequate populations of those to take care of those predator birds. And the denial of indigenous land rights, the destruction of native ecosystems, and acts of genocide led directly to the poverty experienced by the Amah Mutsun members today. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I will bring it together. We'll go to the next slide. When you take a look at protecting landscapes from an indigenous perspective, the first thing you have to recognize and understand is that Mother Earth is sacred. We have got to protect Mother Earth. You know, we look at all of us in Mother Earth as being our relatives. They have the same father, Father Sky, Creator. Those birds, their father is Father Sky and Creator. Mother Earth is our mother for those birds, for those plants. They have the same mother. With that perspective, because we have the same parents, we are relatives to those plants, to those birds, to the water, to the air, to the fog, to the shadows. They're our relatives, and we have to take care of them that way. And how do you take care of your relatives? Imagine your grandmother, or imagine a baby. You take care of it with love, with patience, with kindness. You listen to it, you sing to it, you talk to it. You just sit quietly and just listen to that calmness and that peace that's there. How many times have you done that with outdoors, with the river or with plants? We need, those are relationships. And that, and how many times have you prayed or sang sacred songs to them or have ceremony for them? That's what our people did. And the Creator made Mother Earth sacred, and it's the responsibility of our people to ensure and maintain that sacredness. And now today it's our obligation, and not just the Amah Mutsun, and not just Native people, but for all people, to restore that sacredness back to Mother Earth. That's what we got to do. It in your classes. You can take all these environmental classes. You can have a PhD in environmental sciences and not once have anybody talk to you about the sacredness of Mother Earth, how to restore sacredness to Mother Earth. What good is that PhD if you don't study the most important part of Mother Earth and sacredness? What good is that PhD? And then Indigenous perspectives also looks at the environment, and they look at the culture and the spirituality, the culture of the animals. We have songs, and we have prayers, and we have foods we eat and stuff like that. All that is part of the culture of the animals and the culture of wildlife and the spirituality. They know that Mother Earth is sacred. They understand that. We recognize the creator, the creator made Mother Earth perfect. And that's how come we didn't try to build these big monuments and destroy the land just to make a monument. We didn't try to change rivers. We didn't try to dominate Mother Earth in any way. Our people had a responsibility to steward and manage and take care of Mother Earth. We didn't, yet people read that Bible, and the Bible in Genesis, it said, man shall hold dominion over the earth. And they read it, oh, that means we get to dominate it. We can do anything we want. We can destroy it. We can suck all the oil out. We can take all the minerals out. We can pollute the air. We're dominating Mother Earth, and we're doing what the Bible says. How sick is that? And then we talk about science today. This is a big, big problem I have with science. I was talking to a biology professor at one of the community colleges, and I was talking about the kinds of things I'm talking about now. And he goes, well, Val, I only believe in evidence-based science. I started to laugh. I said, the problem with your evidence-based science is that evidence only has to last for 6 months, or until you get a patent, or until you make $1 million. That's all that science has to last for. Then you guys are happy. I go, for Native Americans, evidence-based science must last 7 generations. And so for us, if we cannot ensure that the way we're taking care of the plants and the animals will be good for the next 7 generations, we should never do that. So that's another clear, way that we look at using science to find solutions. I mean, people thought that, well, our fungicides and our insecticides and our herbicides and all that, they thought that those were just such great discoveries. But boy, are we suffering from it now. And then the problems we have too is that our cultural knowledge is not believed unless it is proven by science. And a really good example here is, for thousands of years, our people did control that landscape, control that biodiversity, control that coastal prairie with fire. And then we talked about we need to return fire. Our people managed the lands with fire. And they thought that we were ignorant, that we were stupid, that was just folklore and no truth to it. But there's been a lot of science, and the science shows that our people burn the landscapes every 7, 8, 10 years. And then there's been a lot of science on the effects of fire, of regular interval burning on plants such as seed plants, the grass seed plants. That grass seed plants gets a really hard seed. And without fire, it doesn't get soft enough to germinate. And so the seeds are just sitting there not germinating because there's no fire, because the Mexican period, the Mission period, the California period outlawed fire, and now there's no fire on the landscapes, and now all that seed is just rotting and not germinating. And now science is saying, well, a lot of grasses and stuff like that, they need fire to germinate. But now that science says it, oh, this is the way we have to steward the lands now. We've been saying that for all these years and no one believed us. That's another issue that we have with science. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. I can get a lot along on this. I'm going to just kind of go over this here really quickly. Sacred obligations. Protecting ancestral lands and sacred places is viewed by traditional indigenous people as a cultural responsibility or sacred obligation given to us by Creator and entrusted to them by their ancestors generation after generation. Amah Mutsun and other indigenous people view the fulfillment of these obligations principally as a spiritual matter. Although it often requires engagement today with the political sphere. Cultural survival. Indigenous cultures are deeply interconnected with the land, waters, and living things in specific places. Protecting habitats and sacred places is a matter of cultural survival and is also a matter of preserving the tribe's history and memory, which is connected to these places. Issue of cultural survival are also human rights issues. If you look at the United Nations definition of genocide, the genocide, that definition includes the destruction of people's culture and the destruction of people's spirituality. So how can what's happening at Juristac, where they're trying to destroy those sacred mountains, not be looked at as genocide? And yet we say these things and people just don't get it. And those investors, they just laugh at that and say, you watch us make money. You watch us make money. Next slide. The spiritual practices of California tribes, such as the Amah Mutsun, are directly tied to sacred places such as Juristac, the place of the Big Head ceremony. Ceremonies held at places such as Juristac are also viewed as cultural responsibilities that renew the relationship of the people with the natural and the spiritual world. So by not allowing us to practice our ceremonies at Juristac, that's impacting. Severely is impacting our people's relationships, our cultures, our spiritualities. And then compromise. From a quantitative environmental standpoint, it may appear acceptable to sacrifice one area of native grassland in order to achieve the protection of a larger area. However, if the location in question is of particular cultural significance to a tribe, for instance, the Sargent Valley of Juristac, there is not any room to compromise. From a tribal standpoint, the ancestral places cannot be replaced or substituted, and there is no way to mitigate for the desecration. And what that's getting at is Juristac is, that's our tribal name for it. Today it's known as Sargent Ranch. And Sargent Ranch is 6,400 acres. Well, what the investors say, well, we're only going to mine on 320 acres of Juristac. We'll put 2,000 acres into a conservation easement, and we can do the mining, and we can accomplish conservation goals here. Well, maybe from a conservation standpoint alone, you might find some conservationists that would agree with you. But from an indigenous standpoint, we sure don't believe with that. I mean, because what's sacred isn't where you hold the ceremony. What's sacred is the landscape as a whole. And a landscape as a whole includes the trees, the birds, the flowers, the river. All these things constitute the sacredness of Juristac. And so how can that be? And then another thing we say is when you look, you heard me say that all things are our relatives. Well, Juristac as a whole is our relative. And by saying, well, let us just mine those 320 acres and everything will be okay. Well, that's like asking us to say, well, only mind the arm or only mind the leg and we'll call it good. How the heck do you do that? You know, and those are the perspectives of the investor and the counties whose job is to look at this. A lot of times they'll say that's a good compromise. We're always expected to compromise, always expected to compromise at the expense of our culture and our spirituality and on and on. Next slide. Here's an update on Juristac. And we asked the students to please learn more about this and to get involved. The draft environmental impact report for the proposed Sergeant Quarry is still being prepared by the County of Santa Clara and is expected to be released at the end of this year. Once the draft environmental impact report is released, we're asking everybody to review that. If you have a specialty area in the environment, for example, water or wildlife or botany or trees, rivers, you know, study that environmental impact report and submit comments on those that support the perspectives of the tribe. And also include in there that the tribe's history, culture, spirituality must be respected and protected, and that it's time for city governments, county governments, state governments to recognize that. And it's time to stop the destruction of Native American peoples. Also, there's going to be public comment meetings that are held, and we're going to be asking people by the thousands to please show up. So please plan on doing that. We don't know when those meetings are scheduled, but it'll be towards the end of this year, and they could even follow into next year. But whenever they are, if you've learned about them, please show up and please bring your friends, your parents, and whoever, you know, strangers. Go down to Skid Row and pay some people to go with you. Do what you can, please. The third bullet, right now, the focus of the campaign is to gain as much visibility and public support as possible. And it's important that, you know, and these are Santa Clara boards of supervisors. So if you know people in Santa Clara, try to take them as well, because they're the ones that are voting to vote these people in or vote these people out. And that's the pressure that they will feel. The fourth bullet, the owner of the Debt Acquisition Company of America. And this right here, that, you know, DACA, what they do is, it's a company, they've been around for 30 some years now. And what they do is they go out and look for property that is being sold in a distress, like this right here, like Sergeant Ranch was in bankruptcy. And they buy it, and then they look at ways of monetizing it. For example, in Juristac, 1,800 acres, 1,883 acres were on the Santa Cruz County side. Well, they already sold that. They broke that off and sold it. And now there's 2,200 acres that they're trying to sell in the northern part of Juristac. And 120 acres they're trying to sell on the southernmost part of Juristac. And so this is a sacred mountain. This is a sacred landscape. And they're just cutting into little pieces, making money, millions of dollars. And then they want to mine. And whenever they mine, that's the real jackpot there. Because if they can mine that thing, what they do is they will make immediately 4 or 5 times their investment. And it's appraised at $30 million as a whole. They can make 4 or 5 times that. And they just sell it. They don't do the mining. They just sell it to a company like Granite Rock or somebody that will do the mining and with that permit, and their job is done. They go on to and they got other properties happening at the same time. This is what they do time after time after time. So destructive, so destructive. The campaign, the next slide, the Amah Mutsun campaign to protect Juristac. We have an online petition. Please sign our petition. Please get your the people you're living with, your parents, your families, get your friends, get your social group of friends and associations you work with. Get them all to sign that petition. And then write letters of support to the county. We develop curriculum for educators online. Take a look at that. Look at a lot of the letters that we have. There's some really strong messages there. Thank you, Rachel, for putting that up. There's a lot of there's a lot of letters there. See them, and you'll see who's supporting this and their messaging and stuff like that. And then look for ways of direct action. Tribal-led coalition building. Who's supporting us? The ACLU is supporting us. The Center for Biological Diversity is supporting us. Friends of Santa Cruz, which is an organization in Santa Cruz, and they're wonderful and they're great to the Amah Mutsun, and they work with us. So if you really want to get involved in this campaign, contact the Friends of Juristac. We're in touch with them on a very, very regular basis. There's an environmental justice collaborative and other California tribes and nations, and there's many more. Going to the next slide. We've had a walk for Juristac and a youth walk for Juristac. And our walks, they're not just a walk or a rally. These walks are ceremonies and prayer, asking our ancestors to be with us, to help watch over us and guide us, and help lead us to be successful in our efforts to protect Juristac. We've had a number of public presentations throughout the campaign to educate and raise awareness of others. If you can bring a large organization or groups of people together, a large one, we can make a presentation to them on this very thing. On the calls for resolutions to support, there you see Santa Cruz. Get the students involved and get the students to write a resolution supporting the Amah Mutsun, supporting the protection of indigenous culture, supporting the protection of indigenous spirituality, etc. You'll see examples of resolutions that other cities and schools like Stanford and USC. That one from USC is from I believe is from the professors from the schools. And so, but it'd be great to have one from the students there as well, and Morgan Hill and others. I'm going to go to the next slide. And then other things you can do is seek out, what you can do in support of indigenous people in general, not just the Amah Mutsun. Seek out local indigenous leadership and talk to them and see how you can work to support them. Learn about the legacies of colonialism. Just think about this. Every day you stand up and you put your feet on the ground. Thank you, Maddie. You put your feet on the ground. You're putting your feet on ground that was stolen from indigenous people. Every morning you're doing that. Every step you take on campus is on stolen ground. Become knowledge about local indigenous histories and consider making regular donations to indigenous tribes or organizations in your local area. I'm going to stop there because I want to get to Q&A. Well, the last slide, there is our website. You can follow us at Protect Juristac. You can like us on Facebook. And again, you can donate to our land trust for our Amah Mutsun, for our Protect Juristac. And thank you very much. Maddie, we can go to Q&A now. How's that? I always go over. Sorry about that.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, don't be sorry. We love to hear it. Let's give like a big round of applause, like some snaps, y'all, because amazing, resonating, captured all of my emotions of anger and frustration. But yeah, we want to reiterate though for questions for you guys to use the raise hand feature if you want to ask your own question, or like feel free to type it in the chat and we'll bring it up, or you can DM one of us and if you want to make like an anonymous question. So yeah. I see Stina, you have your hand raised. You can go on.
Thank you. Hi, I was wondering, as a biologist who is, my major is biology, my minor is sustainability studies. And I want to use biology and science to help your cause and help everybody, all this kind of general stuff. And I was wondering, how can I be a better um, scientist so that I can connect the two and kind of make more of a difference, and I don't know, not make it so alienated, and find a way to bridge the two together.
Thank you for the question. It's I'm actually writing a book. I'm writing the book with a professor there at UC Santa Cruz who's helping me. And the title of the book is Assimilation is Surrender. And I truly believe that. There's so much pressure. There's so much pressure on Indigenous people to give up on their Indigenous roots, their Indigenous knowledge, their Indigenous heritage, and just assimilate, and just accept the world that we're living in going forward. And so one of the most important things for people to do, and this is true not only for Indigenous people. I've known this for a very long time, but people, some of the people that I'm talking to now, they're looking at, like just last week, they're Irish, and they're looking into the Irish roots and their ancestry, and they're trying to rediscover, restore their language and bring back their traditional cultures and learn as much as they can about their people and stuff like that. But learning who you are is kind of the best thing that you can do. We talk about 7 generations. The 7 generations before you taught you how to. It's them that now decides how you love, how you fear, how you hate, how you solve problems, how you deal with difficult situations. Learn your ancestry. Also, and it will all go back to the things I'm talking about. It will all lead back exactly to what I'm saying, Indigenous or non-Indigenous. Recognize it first, all restoration must start with Mother Earth. So you're studying biology now and science and environmental science and stuff like that. Fight hard to bring the sacredness back, to recognize Mother Earth as being sacred. Don't accept the teachings that science has all the solutions. Science can help. I'm not saying forget science, you're wasting your time. I'm not saying that. But recognize if you can find a way to have science help restore the culture and the spirituality. Look for those paths. That's not a great answer, but that's kind of the best I can do. Not having that answer that would take some time to think about.
That actually made me think maybe a good way to mix the two would be some form of art that would show people like how beautiful nature is and all those little things that people take for granted that we should not.
Mm-hmm.
And put it maybe in a scientific perspective so that it's something like, hey, this isn't just made up, like, whatever voodoo hara, like this is real, this is beautiful, this is worth being protected, and all that good stuff. I think I'll do.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, and look at things as a whole, like all the connections and stuff like that. Don't just look things in isolation. The example, don't just look at birds. You got to look at the whole landscape.
It's all connected.
Yes.
We are. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, to continue on the questions, I guess I also wanted to say too, as a scientist myself, that I think it's really difficult how science continues to be an environmental degrader because of the way that like we harness and like obtain things for research. So I guess like the way that we take things, I think is really important. Sonia also asked, who are you writing your book with?
There's the retired professor, Beth Hawes. She retired last year, and she was in the history department. And that's who I'm working with.
That's lovely to hear. Emily May, I see you have your hand raised. You can go off.
Yeah, yeah, I just appreciate all your words and information so far. And I guess I wanted to ask specifically about spirituality. And I feel pretty spiritually connected with nature. Like I feel like I've gone out and spent a lot of time camping or working at camps, and just being in Santa Cruz, we're so like surrounded by so many beautiful areas. And I've always viewed like that connection with other organisms as mutual, like we all evolved from the same thing. And I don't see science and spirituality as being separate. I think that there's a lot of overlap, and what we have denied in spirituality is often things that we just haven't discovered in science, or that humans haven't fully understood yet or publicized. But my question is, how do you approach people who refuse to see that connection, and who refuse to remember our roots, and don't really, like, they deny things that are spiritual, like atheists, or like I feel like a lot of that spurs from like how we have a lot of right-winged religious people in America, and we also have like a global network of like politicians who use religion to kind of control people. And I have a lot of friends locally who just can't, like, they don't want to accept religion in any way or spirituality in any way. And sometimes I get in arguments about it. And I just feel like I'm always butting heads with people who just can't understand like the sacredness of just being out in nature, and understanding that my life is as important as an ant on the ground. And so how do you approach people who just can't, who completely deny your spirituality?
Well, I mean, you're not going to change their mind. I'm not going to change their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I usually don't deal with them, and just, try to, it's hard. It is hard. You'll go nuts and get sick and stuff like that if you worry about, if you do that too much.
Yeah.
What I tell myself every day is stay focused, work hard every day, and work to achieve your goals. And we've all had experiences where we argue with, we get in arguments, or we hear just the dumbest things imaginable, and you just say, where the heck is this coming from? Lately, what I've been thinking about is that there's a lot of healing that needs to get done, and the perpetrators need to heal. I mean, you cannot kill for bounty money. You can't pay bounty money and not having that destroy your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And those are, and so both sides are perpetrators, and perpetrators need to heal. And the people, and the perpetrators never healed, and they just pass that wound down generation after generation and generation. And I think now we're dealing with a lot of people who have suffered greatly. They have a huge soul wound. And until they recognize that soul wound has got to heal, that nothing's going to be done about it. I talk a lot about healing and ways to heal. The ways to heal all starts with the truth. And until those people are willing to listen to the truth, it just doesn't do any good.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. It's so hard because it's people, you know, people that we love, like people I can't just cut out in my family, you know. So it's challenging. But I guess you're right, just kind of speak our truth and hold my tongue when I need to. But yeah.
Yeah, I have that in my family too.
Mhm.
And they think I'm nuts. But that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's the approach is, oh wow, you're really crazy for thinking that.
Uh-huh.
But yeah.
Well, we're in the same club, so welcome.
Alrighty, cool. Thank you for that wisdom. So somebody else asked anonymously that they were looking at at your website and saw that there's some opportunities to help with land stewardship, and they were wondering if you know anything about like folks that are able to go up and help with stuff like that because it appears that the event is sold out. Um, so yeah, just like your hot take on people being able to volunteer for land stewardship even if the event is sold out.
The event isn't sold out. We're not selling anything. The event has filled up. So I want to say that, I mean, if people are going to volunteer, we're not going to charge them to volunteer. So that's an important, it's important to mention that. Yeah, what's happening is that we only have so much work to accomplish. What we're doing is really exciting. This coming Saturday is our very first day. And what we're going to do is we have we got seed trays for 40,000 seed plants that we're going to be put, they're in the seed trays, they're in the greenhouse, and now we're going to be planting them out on the land. And and so the people that go out there, they're going to be getting the seed trays and taking them out and planting them in the land. And so we can, I mean, if we open it up, we were going to limit it to 20, and now we got 40. We had overwhelming people, great numbers of wanting in, and then even from the tribe, we have a number of tribal members that are coming in to do that as well. And so we upped it to 40, but if we got any more up there, people would just stand around, not do anything, or everybody be banging into each other, and there's only so many tools and that kind of stuff. So I'm sorry for that, but there's going to be more opportunity in the future. And we're looking to get 120,000 plants total in the ground this year. And those are all native plants. And native plants are really important because they're more resistant to drought, to floods, to fire. Plus, they're more resistant to disease. And so a big part of dealing with climate change are restoring native plants. And I talk about that a lot. And so please be aware of that.
Alrighty, cool. That sounds really exciting though, that you guys are planting a bunch of native plants because yeah, there's not enough conversation within science about like doing research on native plants and how to repopulate them. There's another question though, anonymous, about what is the best way to get in touch or involved with our local tribes to lend our hands in our community?
Well, for Santa Cruz, the local tribe would be the Amah Mutsun. Let me tell you one thing about that. The local tribe of Santa Cruz is the Awaswas tribe. I talked up very little on that horrendous history experienced by California tribes. There are no known survivors of the Awaswas. All have died. No known survivors. That is sad. We have descendancy to Mission San Juan, but we have, my lineage has descendancy to Santa Cruz. My great-great-great-grandmother is listed by the Smithsonian Institute as the last speaker of the Awaswas language. The BIA recognized the number of our members in the 1950s and the 1970s as being Santa Cruz tribal Indians. But then as we were doing more and more research, it wasn't in 2019, we found that our Waswas lineage actually ties to the town of Almaden on the other side of 17. And so because of that, there are no known Waswas speakers, and we can't claim Waswas. But because of our ties to the mission, because of our agreements with other local tribes, well, we work and we steward and we take care of the lands within the Waswas tribe, but we do it with the approval, with the consent of other tribes, and they're welcome to join us and become part of our work at any time. So to get involved with a local tribe would mean would be working with the Amah Mutsun. If you went to our land trust, there's places there you can sign up to volunteer. We have a newsletter that we're going to start working on, and we have a newsletter that's going to come out probably 2-3 weeks. And that's going to have some exciting stuff in there. So you want to get, go to our website and get on our, sign up to receive our newsletter, sign up for the volunteer list, and sign up to support Protect Juristac.
Yeah, thank you for those resources. I guess also to know too, for like folks that maybe aren't in Santa Cruz, is there like, I don't know, like a website or like resources, or is it something that people just have to look into if they did want to get involved with like Indigenous communities like within their area?
That's good. There's there's a number of resources now. I don't know them off the top, but if you went, just looked up names and locations of California tribes, I'm sure that would pop up. And you can find out who the tribe is from your territory. And that's always important to know, because those are the lands, those are whose lands you're walking on.
Good to know. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to give everybody a time check. We have about like 5-ish more minutes, so like keep those questions coming in if you still have some. I personally had a question that I've like think through every now and then. I guess I'm curious about how you feel about land acknowledgement. Because I think it's definitely important, but it feels like superficial sometimes. It's like we're acknowledging we're on stolen land, but we're doing nothing about it. So I'm just kind of curious on your take on that.
Yeah, no, I like that, Yeah, oftentimes I feel the same, it's kind of like, well, at least they're doing something, that's what it kind of feels like. At least they're doing something, but there has to be a more genuine, more sincere way of doing that. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that now. There's no real solution. I just confirming that I agree with the way that you feel, and then in some circles, that they're just reading it as a formality. There's no sincerity behind it. And yet other groups, whenever they say it, that they're thinking about what they're saying and putting purpose and understanding why they're saying it and putting meaning and purpose behind it. But then you're grateful for that. So it all just comes down to the sincerity of who's, the people that are saying it and how it's being said, I guess. Yeah, but lately we've been developing, getting requests for developing land acknowledgement for so many different folks, and each land acknowledgement should be from the tribe of that territory. I know some people, can you develop a general land acknowledgement that would work for all lands and all tribes? No, we can't. No, we can't. It has to be very custom to the tribe.
Yes, these things are true. Gosh, and they should be acknowledged. The different communities and tribes that are around us. I see Noah, you have your hand up. You can go off.
Yeah, so I was just curious, possibly on a daily basis, how do you recognize Mother Earth's sacredness, and possibly share some ideas on how we can as well, just like on a daily basis. Thank you.
I like that question. It's the first time I've been asked that. Thank you. Well, I mean, kind of like it's in our heart. You know, whenever we pray, we'll hold a smudge stick and an abalone shell when we pray. And the purpose for that is that smoke is going up. That smoke is carrying our prayers to Creator. So the Creator can better understand the prayers that we're offering. But yet at that same time, that smoke will also carry up the prayers and the messages that are in our hearts, in our minds, and in our bodies. And so when we pray, we don't just pray with our words. I mean, when I was a little kid, I grew up Catholic, and I must have said 1,000,000 Our Fathers, and I probably paid attention to about 2 of them. You know, trying to say, what does this mean? You know, and you just rattle them off, and you know, and is that a prayer that was received by God or by Creator? You know, and such. But then, within the Native American, I mean, you pray with every bit of your being, and throughout the day you're praying. You know, and so I see a tree. You know, just thank you for the beauty, Creator. Thank you, or you know, telling that tree, you know, thank you. And it's just acknowledging all that's around you and acknowledging that it's sacred and giving thanks for that. And I try to never get into that repetition of just say these words and that's all you got to do. You know, every prayer is different, every prayer is unique, and I try to make it that way. And I try to always think before I talk, think what's in my heart, and that's what I say, because our words should always be from our heart. Thank you.
Yes, truly. Thank you. Honestly, I think it's really just, yeah, about gratitude and, yeah, letting your heart come out and just be really gracious for the things that we have today, because climate change, you know, might take them tomorrow, next week, who knows?